Welcome to the Housing Commission's May 3rd, 2023 regular Housing Commission meeting. This is a hybrid meeting with the Housing Commission members, city staff, and members of the public participating in the downtown conference room and via Zoom. I will call the meeting to order at 6:33 p.m. We're gonna start roll call now. I would like to introduce the staff and Housing Commission members present. Heather Light.
Yep.
Jacqueline Campos.
She's absent.
She's not here?
Yeah, she's absent.
Okay, Nevada Merriman,
Present. Present.
John Pimento,
Not here yet.
Adriana Walker,
Here.
Virginia Portillo.
Present.
Did I say your name correctly? I apologize if I didn't.
You did, thank you.
I'm Commissioner Vice Chair Chelsea Nguyen, and I'm participating remotely under Assembly Bill 2449 Just Cause. I'm utilizing this bill Just Cause because I am doing a study related to my physical disability during the war, and I'm currently in Washington, D.C. We have, for staff, we have Interim Housing Manager Aaron Romero, Management Analyst Adam Patterson, and Assistant Community Development Director Deanna Chow. Aaron Romero, would you please provide instructions to the Housing Commission and members of the public on how the meeting will proceed?
Thank you, Vice Chair Nguyen and members of the Housing Commission. Welcome everyone to the May 3rd meeting of the Housing Commission, and thank you for attending. Staff will engage cameras and microphones to make presentations and respond to the members of the Housing Commission. For members of the public who are in attendance and wish to provide public comment on an item on tonight's agenda, after the chair calls for public comment on the item you wish to speak on. For virtual participants, please engage the raise hand feature at the bottom of your screen. For those who are calling in from a landline or a cell phone, please press 9. For those in person, please complete a speaker card and bring it to my desk. That concludes the instructions, and I return the meeting to the chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. Under public comment, the public may address the Housing Commission on any subject not listed on the agenda. Each speaker may address the Housing Commission once under public comment for a limit of 3 minutes. You are not required to provide your name to the city of residence, but it is helpful. The Housing Commission cannot act on items not listed on the agenda, and therefore the Housing Commission cannot respond to non-agenda issues brought up under the public comment other than to provide general information. Aaron, do we have any public comment?
Yeah.
No.
No, we don't.
We have no comment?
No
Okay.
comment. Oh, there's one. So you raise your hand.
Oh, okay. I didn't fill this out yet, but
We can fill it out later.
my name is Dawn. I'm a student at Stanford University. I'm currently writing an article on Bellhaven and Facebook and affordable housing. I was wondering, I don't know exactly how it's representative of Bellhaven, but if you could please talk to me after, I'd love to interview you.
You can go to item D. Sophie.
The item is open for Housing Commission discussion and selection of chair and vice chair.
I nominate, do we nominate now?
Well, I wonder if we might want to go around and introduce ourselves.
Oh, yeah, that's a
given
good
that
idea.
there's a new member. Chair, would you be supportive of giving everybody a chance to introduce themselves? And potentially state whether or not they're interested in serving in any kind of capacity?
Absolutely, that's acceptable to me. Is that all right with the staff? Aaron, Adam, do we have names? Is it okay? Thank you. Please proceed.
Okay, I can start. Hello, I'm Nevada Merriman. I have been on the commission about 6 years. I live in the Willows, and I'm very happy to hear about some of our new members and understand whom among us might be interested in serving in a leadership position. Thank you.
My name is Heather Leach. I'm also live in the Willows, and I've been on the Housing Commission for 2 years now. It's been a learning curve for me and very interesting for me.
I'm Adriana Walker. I am, do I state where I live?
Yes.
I'm a resident at Anton Menlo. I've been here for about a year now. That went by really fast. I'm learning amongst my colleagues and I'm happy to be here. I am in no capacity to take on anything extra on my plate, if I can state that, but nice to meet you all.
Hi, good evening. My name is Virginia Portillo. I was just assigned to the advisory board. I do apologize if I say something incorrectly, but I'm excited to be here. I'm representing Bellhaven, and I look forward to meeting each of you and learning as I grow in this exciting position.
Welcome.
And
Nice to
John
meet
would be the last one.
I think we have Commissioner John Pimentel is here with us now.
I'm here. Sorry, it took me a second to get connected there.
John, we're going around and introducing ourselves and saying briefly where we live and whether we're interested in taking on leadership roles.
John, before you introduce yourself, would you state the reason for AB
2449 for remote participation? We can pull up the. Give us a minute.
I'm at my house. If you guys need me to come over, I can.
Yes.
Yes.
Are we not able to participate via video anymore?
No, unless there's a few stipulations. One would be traditional Brown Act. We would have to be agendized in the location. Other than that, there's some like under just cause or emergency circumstances under AB 2449 for illness or illness in the taking care of illness in the family or some other or childcare, some other reasons.
John, should we expect you to come in person or do you want to state the reasons why you're remote?
My reason is that I'm at home and you're there. So if you need me to be physically in person, I will come to City Hall. that'll cost me probably 10 to 15 minutes, and I don't want to slow down the meeting. So can we start the meeting and I'll head over?
Yes, thank you.
She can introduce herself.
For sure. Yeah, Vice Chair Nguyen, you can continue and introduce yourself as well.
Hi, good evening. As you all know, I am currently doing a study for wartime veterans here in Washington, DC. I shall meet with you all next month. I should be returning back to the Bay Area next week. My name is Chelsea Nguyen, and I have been on the Housing Commission for about 2 years now, same time as Commissioner
Leach.
I'm trying to think of a way to pronounce your name correctly after 2 years. I apologize.
That's fine.
And I started out as running when I ran for city council. My biggest issues on my agenda was the housing issue. As many of you probably already know, if you don't, I am a BMR recipient. And this has been a labor of love for me, because I think everybody should have a chance to have equal opportunity to housing, especially in the Bay Area. So when I lost the city council race, this commission was the one I wanted to be on. But I'm glad that we are here now, and I don't have any other comments. So anybody else? Should we wait for?
Chair,
should
do
we
you
wait?
want, Vice Chair, do you want to be chair? Maybe that is the custom, that after being vice chair that it's considered. So I think it would be helpful for us to know in the room if that's something that you would like to do.
I would not mind serving out my term, 4-year term as chair, but at this point, I think my goal to ensure that we use public land to create housing and businesses. I think that was my goal, and I think like that's I'm okay with where it's heading now. So I am okay actually either way. I have no preference one way or the other at this point. I think in the beginning it meant a lot to me to be in the leadership position, but now it is not as important. So if I'm nominated and accepted, this is okay. If not, I'm happy to support whoever wants to be in the leadership role. Thank you.
Do we nominate? Do we nominate now?
I think you're ready, so
Let's
see if it.
I nominate a Vice Chair Nguyen to be chair of the Housing Commission.
I'm happy to second.
I nominate, oh, do we nominate?
Yeah.
Vice Chair. No.
Yeah, I think that everyone should.
Or you gonna vote to roll on that?
So we
Do we
know,
have, Adam, do we have a quorum at all? Do we need to wait for Commissioner Pimentel?
He's here. He just got here. Well, that was quick.
so we need to select the vice chair and the chair.
At the same time?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
My.
I would recommend doing the chair first and then
And then the vice.
do a run.
I'm not, I'm petrified and my plate is full.
Yes.
Hi.
Hi there.
Apologize, I'm 30.
Oh, that's okay. We were just nominating chairs and vice chairs.
Great. We'd be interested to hear your thoughts now that you've joined us. So nice to see you.
I apologize. Please accept my apologies. I'm
No,
sorry.
no.
I have gotten used to the Zoom format.
Do you want to introduce yourself now that you're here?
I'm John Pimentel.
And you are.
I am Virginia Portillo.
Hi, Virginia.
Hi, I'm new to the advisory board.
Nevada Merriman, nice to see you.
Heather
Hi,
Leach.
Yeah.
Adriana.
Hi, Adrian.
And we had a chance to go around and say whether or not we're interested in serving in a leadership position to get that out as a foundation for the conversation we're having.
Oh, got it. I'm not in a position to take a leadership role on the Housing Commission, but thank you.
Do you nominate anyone?
Oh, yes, I'd like to nominate Chelsea as our chairperson.
Yes. She's been nominated and seconded.
Oh, great.
Okay,
And then unanimous decision.
so now, the vice chair. We want one at a time. So I'll do the roll call. Commissioner Campos is absent. Commissioner Leach,
Yes.
Commissioner Merriman,
Yes.
Gwen,
Yes,
Commissioner Pimentel,
Yes,
Commissioner Portillo,
Yes,
and Commissioner Walker.
Yes.
So the motion passes to have Gwen as our chair for the Housing Commission.
Congratulations, Chair and Win.
Yes,
and thank
congrats.
you very much.
Okay, so you want to vice chair?
I don't know what your plate looks like, but I'm excited to see you as vice chair.
I have served as vice chair and chair of this, and I'm open to it, and also really believe in giving other people the opportunity to as well. I was going to nominate you. So interested to hear if you are considering that.
You know, I wasn't, but, and if other people aren't open to doing it, I would be open to doing it. I think I'm feeling like I'm still on a steep learning curve with, some of this, but, I would do
Volunteer
it.
commission, we can support you.
What's that?
We can support you as you give it a shot.
Sure.
Do we have a motion to nominate Commissioner Leach to be vice chair?
So moved.
I'd like to nominate Commissioner Walker as well.
Oh, me too, yay, go.
I would need a lot of support.
I second Commissioner. Walker.
I would need a lot of support. It's, but I'm eager and I'm willing to learn. And I can add it to, little intimidated, but I'm open.
I would be willing to support you a lot.
Okay.
And I think you would be, I think it would be, you seem to have to know a lot more about like your finger on the pulse of that affordable housing and so I think that.
And resident impacts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I joined it because like Chair Nguyen, I am a BMR recipient, so it is close to home to me. The back end and like the parking lot and all of those other things, I need to learn, but I'm open and willing, so I accept.
Okay.
I'll take a roll call.
We have a,
I'll support Commissioner Walker, so.
So the motion,
Is that a second right there? Commissioner Leach?
Yes, yeah, second the motion.
Okay. Aaron, can you take the roll call
sure.
vote?
Commissioner Campos is absent. Commissioner Leach,
Yes.
Commissioner Merriman,
Yes.
Commissioner Chair Gwen,
Yes. Yes.
Commissioner Pimentel,
Yes.
Commissioner Portillo,
Yes.
Commissioner Walker.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Congratulations, Vice Chair.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Vice Chair Walker.
Okay.
Should a motion passes?
Yes.
So, interim housing manager, Aaron, will you introduce the,
The item.
yes, the items, please?
Thank you. Just even your turn.
Maybe just announce that you're.
Okay, I am choosing to step out as abstention. Given that my employer is being considered as a recipient. Thanks.
We noting that Commissioner Leach is recusing herself.
Commissioner Merriman. Is not me, I'm here.
All right. So
Oh, sorry, Commissioner Merriman, I apologize.
So the item tonight is the notice of funding availability from the DMR fund applications. On December 30th of last year, notice of funding availability of approximately $2 million from the BMR Housing Fund was released to support the preservation or production of permanent affordable housing in Menlo Park. At the time that we released the NOFA, we had about $1.5 to $2 million available. The NOFA was released with no changes from the previous NOFA, which was in 2020. The purpose of this NOFA is for housing production and preservation, new construction, permanent or rental or ownership, acquisition and rehab, preservation of existing housing programs. Just for a little bit of background, the funding is collected from commercial development that is over 10 square feet or more when it's not possible to provide housing units. So on January 27th, we received 3 applications through the cycle and 1 application out of the cycle, which was received in early February. The first recipient was Habitat. And in no specific order, they're just an alphabetical order here. There's no preference for anyone. Was from Habitat for Humanity of Greater San Francisco. Their application was for new construction on BMR ownership. They are planning to develop 18 townhomes, specifically for low-income households, and their request is $2 million. They are not able to present tonight, but we are considering their application. The next applicant is HIP Housing. They're doing new construction on BMR rentals. They're developing 9 rental units focused on low-income households, and they are requesting $5 million. Mid-Penn Housing, they're also doing new construction for BMR rentals. They're developing 62 rental unit apartments focused on veterans, extremely low income and very low income. They are requesting $2 million. And last on our list is Rebuilding Together Peninsula. They're focused on preservation, homeowner rehabilitation, They are proposing to rehabilitate 8 homes owned by low-income families, and they are requesting $180,000. So the total request is $9.180 million, and we have $2 million available. Although we just received $5 million, the request for this NOPA will focus on the $2 million available.
A question? Do we accept the, proposal
So
in
the-
total?
Right now, there is no action. We're gonna hear their presentation.
Okay,
And we're gonna come back and present our recommendation to the Housing Commission, and you'll be able to make your own recommendation.
okay, so that'll be at a later time.
It is a timeline. It'll be in the summer
Okay.
when we come back
Okay.
with that. Next one.
And is our action final, or is it just a recommendation to the city council?
There's gonna be a recommendation to the city.
Thank you.
So that's our tentative timeline. So that's happening, the first presentation is happening today. And then, in the summer,
Is this top of the summer or is this late summer?
it could be as early as July for the Housing Commission to see our recommendation, but we're still, working on that. We did find someone that's gonna help us review the applications, who has experience in NOPA, so we're very excited to have some help to move forward. And I am going to move forward with our next presentation, which is here. Is MidPen or HIP here?
They're on
Oh, they're online, okay.
first.
Yes.
Charter.
So HIP, you're up, HIP Housing.
Hi, sorry, did you say MidPen's up?
HIP Housing, sorry.
Okay, thanks.
Hello there. So I sent over a presentation earlier to Adam. Do you guys have that or oh, there, look at that. There it is. Never mind. Also, I have another, my colleague, Michael Rogers is in the waiting room. If he could be admitted, that would be fabulous.
Will do.
And I can probably go ahead and get started while he gets added. So let me just start with introducing myself. I am Kate Comfort Har. I'm Executive Director of HIP Housing. I've been with HIP Housing. It'll be 12 years in September. So it's just kind of amazing. We do a lot of work in the city of Menlo Park. And the project that I'm here to talk a little bit about, to give you an overview of, it would be located at 1162 El Camino Real. Can we go to the second slide? So HIP Housing really specializes in creative, affordable housing solutions, and we do that throughout San Mateo County. We've been around since 1972. Next slide. We house about 1,200 people throughout the county in 3 different programs. One is our home sharing program, which matches people who have space in their home with people who need an affordable place to live. We house about 370 people there. Our self-sufficiency program works with families who are either homeless or at risk of homelessness by providing them with housing opportunities while they're in school to improve their income and give them more earning power. We house about 130 to 150 children and adults in that program each year. And then finally, it's our property development and management program, and we house about 700 people throughout the county in that program. Next slide. So everything that we own, let's focus on the development side. Everything that we own is 100% affordable. So we own and operate 20 properties of our own. That accounts for about 460 residents. So our properties tend to be smaller. They tend to be preservation projects. They're 6 to 16 units.
But we also do third-party property management, and under that program, we we have 6 contracts for third-party property management, and that constitutes about 240 people. In Menlo Park, our most recent acquisition was a preservation project on Coleman Place, 16 units. That's the picture up at the top. My very first development project way back in 2012 was Willow Road, and that's 12 units. And we also own a home, which is used for our self-sufficiency program, which we count as 2 units because 2 families are always housed there. Next slide. So let's talk about a little bit about 1162. So this is the parcel that used to be the Feldman's Used Books. It's located right on El Camino in an ideal location, close to transit. And you've probably seen this parcel since you live locally. It was demolished quite a while ago and is sitting vacant, ready to be developed. Next slide. So let me give you sort of the genesis of what happened with this property. It's a very unusual sort of process that we've gone through with this, and it's kind of exciting because it continues to evolve. So this project started as a 3-unit community benefit requirement for the Prince Street Partners development. It quickly grew once they acquired this piece of land into a 9-unit project, which would be 3 offsite units to meet their obligation, and then 6 market rate units. And they went through the whole entitlement process and got the project completely entitled using that model. But over the course of time, the discussion started happening that wouldn't it be cool, instead of just 3 units of affordable, if all 9 could be affordable, especially given their proximity to transit. So at that point, Prince Street's like, well, we don't really do all affordable. We'll have to find a partner. And they approached us. And at that point, the idea was that they would do the donation of land and we would do the development of the 9 units. And that's where the original NOFA that we submitted to you, that's where it was. Since then, we have partnered with a contractor, Nibby Brother Construction, that we've worked with several times and actually is a local partner. They took a look at the plans and said, you know what, we can pretty easily get to 12 units in this project without really changing much. Basically, it would be eliminating some balconies on the back side to allow us to get to 12 units. However, one of the things about this particular development is as it was designed and entitled, it was a modular build, and modular builds have a lot of space, wasted space between floors and in other locations. By going to a wood build construction, we could get a 3rd floor onto this site with still being under the height limit and get all the way to 18 units. And that would be pretty desirable and something that we've been talking with different representatives through the city about. So next slide. So this is what the development looked like as 9 units. And with this same frontal facade, we can get to 12. Adding another floor, which would condense the floors below because of all that dead space, we could get to the 18. So next slide. This is another view of it. So you can see this is where the garage would be in the front side of the building. So the housing is actually stacked on top of the parking and a small office area in the front. Next slide. So this is the back side of the property as it was envisioned. And you can see that there are balconies there and that it's set inward. We typically don't do balconies in affordable housing. A lot of times they get used for storage and we don't want that. But also it just takes up space in this design for what could otherwise be housing. So bringing that, where you see those balcony spaces forward, allows us to get to the 12. And then if we don't use the modular construction, we can actually get to the 18. Now, design-wise, it would look different in the back because there wouldn't be the big sliding doors, but we would still do windows, so it'd have that same feature, and could even do a railing in front of those windows that looks very much like this balcony design. So in terms of the aesthetic, it won't be that much different, but it does allow us a lot of flexibility. So next slide. So I talked about, what we'd need to do to get to more than 9 units, and there would be some concessions that we'd have to do. First of all, we'd have to go through entitlements all over again, but we'd need a parking variance because there's only 9 spaces for parking, and we wouldn't be able to get to 18 parking spaces. And frankly, we wouldn't need them. Affordable housing Michael can talk to this point a little bit if you're curious, but a lot of affordable housing developments now are going with no parking actually, because we need the units so desperately. We don't need places for cars, we need places for people. And so because of this location, right next to the train station, on the Caltrain, bus line on El Camino, walking distance to downtown, with a preference for, Menlo Park residents and teachers, it's very likely people would much rather have the unit than worry about whether or not they've got a parking spot. We'd have to lose the balconies. We've got the design originally called for some studio units. We've discovered that studio units, while they seem great because you can get lots of density with the studios, they're not really considered permanent housing. People don't go into studios and plan to live there forever, right? So we would like to convert what was originally going to be studio apartments into a minimum of junior 1-bedrooms, possibly even just making them 1-bedrooms. They're actually designed to be quite large, so that would accommodate it pretty quickly. And then we'd like to do we built out our pro forma based on all very low income, so it's 60% AMI, but we might be able to get some extremely low income in there too, depending on how the pro forma plays out. But even if we get to that 18 units, because of the stick build, we'd still be under the height limit. It'd be taller than it is now, but not above the height limit, which is kind of an exciting opportunity. Next slide. Okay, so what happened was, and I don't expect you to be able to read this, I just put this in here so you get a sense of it. We asked our builder to go ahead and outline what does it look like at the original 9 units. 10 units we can do without making many changes at all. I probably wouldn't even have to go through entitlements, but 12 units and 18 units. And what they did was they came back and said, okay, this is what the cost difference is going to be. So from where we started to where we need to get to. Next slide. I'm going to talk a little bit about financing, and then the very last slide is going to be about the pro forma, where we'll go into some of the numbers in a little more detail, and Michael can talk to those to some degree. So this is a small project, right? We recognize that it's 18 units. The beautiful thing is that's our wheelhouse, 6 to 16 units, but we're not going to be eligible for state programs, right? You're not going to be able to do a TCAC application for this. And TCAC applications are very, very competitive anyway. And so it's always a little risky. So we would take a private lender to help with some of the cost, but the rest of it really falls to city funds. If you really want a project like this right on El Camino that, is really mass transit oriented and all affordable. So the project size really plays a role in this. The other local funding source that you could typically go to would potentially be the county, right? So why don't you go to the county and get extra money? Well, there's a couple of reasons why we'd prefer not to do that. One is that the county money comes with a lot of obligation. One of the obligations is that you have to build into your operating budget a $500 per unit annual fee for supportive services. So that right there really makes a big difference in the operating budget and being able to make the project pencil. So that's one challenge. The other challenge with county money is that they really have a lot of restrictions on who they want to put in that building. So they really want to put their county clients, and that's their number one priority. So typically the regulatory agreement is going to come with a stipulation and requirement of certain county populations that they want to house. And that does impede the ability to have that local preference. The thing that we know about this.
Kate, can I ask a clarifying question?
Sure.
Did you say that if we take any money, or if this project takes any money from the county requires a $500,000 a year operating expense for programmatic?
It's $500 per door per year. So it'd be 5 times either 9, 12, or 18 per door.
What's the purpose of that? Is that to
For
fund
supportive services? They feel that anybody who's living in affordable housing really needs supportive services. And so that's going to look like case management. It's going to look like social services that would come in and do case management for the tenants.
Supplied by the county?
No, that's what the $500 is for. So we're supposed to use that money to provide services for the tenants. So
HIP Housing provides the services.
What's that?
HIP Housing would provide the services.
Yes. Exactly,
Okay.
the owner.
Thank you. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, that's good. No, that makes a lot of sense. Not everybody knows all those kind of details, right? one of the things, because we are a social service agency and we do a lot of case management, one of the challenges with providing case management in small sites is that there's no place to do it. You can't do it in their houses. You have to do it in a case management or a social service office, right? You have to have a site that's not in their homes to do case management. So there's not really a good space in this building for that. There's no community room. There isn't a special private area where that could be provided. So in addition to being a cost, the physical size of the building doesn't lend itself to supportive services, and the population in the building, may or may not work to be able to have supportive services. So you don't want to put populations in there that require that and then not be able to provide it. So that there's just a variety of reasons that when it comes to small projects, county funding doesn't work very well. And that's not to say that they aren't great partners in other developments, they truly are, but we're kind of unique in that we're one of the few developers that really does small site projects, these little, 6 to 16, in this case, it could be more than that. But they're hard to finance, and it takes a lot of commitment and partnership from municipalities who really want these buildings to happen, to help fund them. So the other thing that we know about this project is that it's quite expensive. I mean, the location of it, the way that the amenities are called out, they're all very much for a market rate building. And in the affordable world, we have ways to economize. So the numbers that we've called out really are, and what the construction company that we're working with, Nibby Brothers, has looked at, is based on the original specs. And there are some savings that we could look at, kind of how the HVAC systems run, the giant islands. There are ways to remove some of that stuff and still have really beautiful units with the exact same facade on the front, a very similar facade on the back. But it's not going to create a lot of savings, but it could create some. And if we go forward and keep talking about this project over the long run, we can figure out what those things look like. So the bottom line is this project is still evolving, and it's kind of exciting because it's already gone from 9 to potentially 18, but it costs more, right? The more you do, the more units you do, the more it's going to cost. So if we can go to the last slide, please. It's kind of an overview of what we're looking at and what the contribution is and what the per unit cost is. Originally, when this building was designed, the per unit construction cost was over $1 million per unit. And that isn't unusual now, right? That's what we're seeing. Construction costs are extraordinarily high. They remain high. But the more units you add, the more the construction cost per unit goes down. Even with the original, plan, if you go to 12 units, you're looking, instead of little over $1 million per unit, at 12 units, you're going down to about 847 per unit. If you go to 18, you're down to about 725,000 per unit. That's pretty typical. That 725 is within a reasonable range. But then what we discover is that we need more gap financing from the city because it is still a bigger project. So I'm going to turn it over to Mike. Mike is our development consultant. We work with him on everything. He's my go-to guy. And I don't know, Mike, did you have anything else you might want to share about how the financing side of this works?
No, hello, everybody. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Kate, I don't think so, because it's a fairly straightforward project. And I think emphasizing the fact that as you increase the unit size, a unit number, the per unit cost goes down. And that's really the value of doing 18 versus 9 units. It does increase the gap financing needs of the project, but at a very small incremental amount. So, I mean, if the funds were actually available, it would be the smart thing to do in order to get the maximum number of units. And with more units, you're able to leverage more debt, and it just makes a lot more sense. So that's all I really need to add. I mean, there's really 2 sources. I mean, 3 sources: the contribution from Prince, from the BMR program, the perm mortgage from a private lender, and then the gap financing from the city.
One of the things that I find really exciting about this project is the hardest piece of any project is the land, is acquiring the land and getting the land. Originally, Prince was going to deliver the 3 units. Instead, now they're delivering a piece of land that could lend itself to as many as 18 units. That's pretty spectacular. And that's way more than the community benefit the city would have received with just the 3 units. That donation of land is really huge. And so, that coupled, with the idea of its location makes it super exciting. But it is an expensive project. There's just no getting around that. And it wouldn't probably be that we would be coming to you for 1 round, right? We'd probably have to come back a couple of times in order to secure enough of the gap financing to make this project work.
So what happens in the interim?
We got a lot of design, and we got if we can get a commitment that over the long run, this amount would be doable, then we would continue to move forward with all of our pre-development work, right? So we're going to have architectural work to do depending on how many units the city decides they want. We'll have to go back through entitlements. That can take a while. So it builds some time into the process.
I'm trying to figure out what you mean by over the long term. So you need $13.2 million from the city, but we don't have that. So
Right.
does this mean the project drags out for 3 years while you wait for other in-kind contributions or mitigation contributions? What do we call it? Anybody? In lieu fees, thank you.
Yeah, in lieu fees. So this is something that we're talking with the city about, what kinds of possibilities. So that would be a question probably to take offline with city staff and ask, kind of what they were thinking as we discuss these formats. I'm not really an expert in how that all works, but I think that there's some hope that there might be a way, but we'd have to really look at what that means. But ideally, we would not wait 3 years. It would be much better than to do it in less than 3 years, because it will not take us 3 years to get through entitlements. I say that, but I do know of a project that did take 3 years in Redwood City, so maybe I had better be quiet on that. Entitlements do take a while.
Can anyone from the city speak to how the gap would get filled?
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah.
The funding gap or the,
Well, they need $13.2 million and we don't
we
have.
don't have $13
Right.
million, so
So if we allocate 2 million to this, they need another $11.2 million. Where does that come from?
so it's a conversation about, are we waiting to receive additional funding? Or they're going to be looking for additional source, HIP's very resourceful, and are they gonna be looking for additional funding sources? So that's some of the trade-offs that the commission will be discussing of, what is the amount being asked for, what is the income group, what is the delivery? So those are the things like, is it ready to go? Is it gonna be another 5 years? What other sources of funding are needed? So I don't know, we can't guarantee something that we don't have, so those are the things that this commission and the city council.
But the only other source of funds to fill the gap would be other in lieu
Traditionally from our-
fees from other development projects in the city.
That's correct. Usually, so our BMR funds are funded by the commercial linkage fees. So when there is a commercial or non-residential development that is subject to the commercial linkage fee, and when they pull a building permit, and the housing commission will see all of those agreements, so you'll know what sort of revenue is coming in. So you've seen a number of BMR agreements, then that gets deposited into the BMR fund, and then every 2 years or off cycle, we issue the NOFA and release funds to support. So right now, as Erin mentioned, we have the 2 million approximately that we set aside for this. Recently, because of the recent development, received another approximate 5 million. Whether or not that is going to be used for this funding round or another NOFA or some other uses of affordable housing has not yet been identified. That's part of a conversation with the city council of how do we want to use those additional resources.
Thank you.
I have a question for Kate.
Yeah.
Kate, have you thought about what happens if we don't have the funds for you to cover the 13 million? Have you thought about other resources that maybe perhaps on your list that you're thinking about applying to?
Well, we haven't really identified other sources. We have talked to other developers that were doing developments in the city who were pretty excited about the idea that if they had to pay an impact fee, to know that it was going into something that was going to happen, and that was going to happen in a very visible way, right? Something right on El Camino, something so lovely and sort of reinvents people's idea of what affordable housing looks like. You know, we have had some minimal success on the philanthropic side, you know, talking with Facebook and they did come in with a contribution to fill a gap on our Coleman acquisition, but it was a small amount. We're not talking many millions. You know, we might be able to garner smaller donations and contributions towards the project. But it's really the bulk of the heavy lifting is really going to be city. And so that is a challenge, and we will have a private loan on it as well. And I don't know how the city writes their regulatory agreements on new construction, whether or not you do residual receipt loans or how it works. But it would be interesting to find out what the thinking is on this, and is this a loan, or is this a contribution of cash just into the project? Because that might make a difference too, and how it's perceived.
So if you don't have the fundings, is this project going to be shelved? Is that what?
Yeah, I mean, if you don't have funding, you can't do it. And we've already started some pre-development work, just sort of on good faith, that it was so exciting to have a donation of land at this particular location to see what the feasibility is. And that's really as far as we've gotten. We weren't sure whether to apply at this point because it seemed a little premature, but at the same time, so important to get it on your radar, to know that this is a possibility and to be thinking about whether or not it makes sense, which is probably why you noticed our NOFA was a little scattered when it wasn't the most polished NOFA that we've ever done, because these things happen very, very quickly. When you're dealing with market forces, right? You're dealing with sellers who have a lot of different options, and you got to move quickly, and these things come up really, really quickly. Our Coleman, purchase that we did in Menlo Park was one of those. It came before us. It was on the market. The seller was willing to give us a little bit of extra time to work with the city to see if we could make it happen. But the timelines become very, very condensed when you're working in the market, the arena. And so we wanted to move as quickly as we could to see how far we could get, to see if this project has legs, to see if there's interest, to see if there's a willingness to get creative on how we finance it. Because smaller projects like this will just disappear because of the cost, and because it's as hard to do a small project as it is to do a really big one. So most organizations aren't going to do small ones. They're going to put their energy just into the really big ones. But the site doesn't lend itself to big, right? It lends itself to 18 units. And that is a pretty exciting opportunity nonetheless. Plus just a donation of land to do something like this with. Pretty exciting, because you just don't get that.
I had a clarifying question for the city. How do we come up with the in lieu fee per the development? Is it a fixed dollar amount, or how do you come up with that number?
I think there's on the BMR guidelines, there is a specific fee per square foot. I can share that with you later.
Okay.
And that is, it changes every July 1st, increased a little bit by the CPI.
Okay, thank you.
So I think the Housing Commission has reviewed proposals for in lieu fees in the past. So I remember seeing some of those come in.
Yes, thank you for that.
I have a question for Chair Nguyen. So have 4 of these presentations tonight. Are we gonna allocate a certain amount of time for each presentation, or will we discuss each presentation?
We're supposed to be
In
10
like-
minutes.
Yeah, we're
per-
writing
10 minutes. Great, okay,
There will be 3.
super.
My presentation was 10 minutes. Just saying.
Thank you. And it was excellent, Kate. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Okay, so can we go on
Yeah,
to
we're
the
excited
next
about her
presentation?
Hi, everyone. This is Cynthia Luzad. I believe MidPenn's up next. So I'm just going to jump right in. If someone could also promote Abby Goldware-Potlery to presenter, that would be great. In the meantime, I'll go ahead and get started. So hi, my name is Cynthia Luzad. Sorry, let me share my screen.
Yeah, I'll share the presentation and then you can just instruct me to, yes.
Okay.
Just give me 1 second.
Okay, that sounds great. So I'm Cynthia Luzad, a project manager at MidPenn, and I'll be presenting the veteran housing project located at 795 Willow Road, and discussing MidPenn's $2 million request to the city to help fund this new affordable community for veterans. Next slide, please. So MidPenn has deep experience building and managing affordable housing communities in San Mateo County. Over the last 50 years, we've developed 124 communities throughout the Bay Area, and about a third of these communities are located in San Mateo County. We also have a deep history of working in Menlo Park. We built our first community here in 1986, Willow Terrace, and we manage a total of 4 communities serving 209 households in the city. This includes Sequoia Bellhaven, Willow Court, Willow Terrace, and Gateway Rising, which is currently under construction. So our department, or MidPenn, is made up of 3 different branches: development, property management, and resident services, all of which are in-house. Our development team has developed over 8,500 affordable homes in 35 cities across the Bay Area. And we currently have 3,000 homes in the pipeline with 15 communities under construction. I mentioned for property management, we manage 124 communities, and our approach to property management is really based on 3 core values: being a good neighbors, enhancing residents' lives by thoughtfully responding to individual and communities' needs, and sustainable operations and maintenance. And then finally, resident services. We have an in-house staff of over 100 individuals, and we work with over 300 partner agencies. And we offer 3 distinct programs that serve working adults and youth, seniors, and special needs households, such as formerly homeless households, veterans like this project, farm workers, etc. And we have over 2 decades of experience working with these supportive housing communities. Our programs are intentional and have positive outcomes, such as resident self-sufficiency, financial health and stability, seniors aging in place, and housing retention. Next slide, please. So jumping into the project, so in 2019, MidPenn Housing was selected through a competitive process by the Veterans Affairs to develop a supportive housing directly on their land, on the VA Palo Alto Healthcare System campus, which the picture here is the entire campus and the project sites outlined in red. It's along Willow Road, but directly on the campus. So MidPenn and VA are working to transform this underutilized parking lot and grass area into 62 homes for veterans and their families who are at risk of homelessness or formerly homeless. The community itself will consist primarily of 1 bedrooms with a few 2 and 3 bedrooms mixed in there. And the VA will continue to own the land and MidPenn will retain site control through a long-term ground lease. And I also want to mention, before I moved on to the next slide, that this site was identified in the city's recent housing element as a housing opportunity site. So it's an exciting opportunity, I think, to kind of further MidPenn, the VA, and the city's goals to build more affordable housing for those most in need. Next slide, please. Okay, So who are we serving? We're creating 60 affordable and safe homes for veterans and their families who are formerly homeless. As we all very well know, many individuals who have experienced homelessness have fallen into it. So some event caused them to lose their home. For some, it's losing a loved one. For some, it's a job, or for some, it's, you know, needing to forego paying rent for paying health bills. So this is really an opportunity to house those who have both served our country and to continue working in the effort to reduce homelessness. And given its location on the VA campus, it's an exciting opportunity to bridge health and housing. The future veteran residents, many of whom are already coming onto the campus for a variety of services, will have direct access to the VA. So in addition to the services they receive through the Veterans Affairs, they will also be supported by MidPenn's on-site services staff. Next slide, please. So this slide gives you just a sense of the income bands that we'll be serving. So the community itself will be serving households earning 30 to 50% of area median income. We've been partnering with the VA to really hone in on our affordability targeting because they have a great understanding of the types of federal assistance that the veterans were serving, what they receive. And so we wanted to make sure that the AMI bands that we're covering and structuring our project around actually serve the veteran population. So serving a priority population, which will help, you know, further the city's progress toward meeting its RHNA goals. The project will add roughly 20 ELI units, extremely low income units, and 40 very low income units. Next slide, please. So we've been busy in the last year. We've already secured some permanent financing from the county last year. We've secured 35 really crucial HUD-VASH project-based vouchers also last year. And we have the land, and then we also applied for AHP financing in addition to the city financing. So our request for the $2 million in below market funds will really help us leverage other public funds through the financing point systems that those public funds use. So ultimately, this funding is going to help us propel forward to start construction next year. Next slide, please. So last year, we were really focused on furthering design, engaging in intentional community outreach. We spoke with stakeholders and council members and hosted a community virtual community meeting in the summer, then kind of pivoted to focusing on securing and applying for financing sources. And so you can see here that we have a pretty big schedule over the next year. Our team will be really busy applying for critical financing that will allow us to start construction in December 2024 and end construction in March of 2026. So residents will be moving in the summer of 2026. 60 new veteran residents. So we're really excited about this opportunity. And I think that's my last slide. So I will go ahead and turn it over for questions if there are any. Thank you so much.
Did I read your slide correctly in that the total cost for your project was 32 million or?
No, I think that might have been the tax credit proceeds. If you could go back one slide, that would be great. Yeah, so that's, yeah, it's not the total. The total sums up to be about 60 million. Yeah, that would be incredible if it were only 32 million.
Okay, if there are no questions, we can move forward with rebuilding together. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
That's very informative.
However you want to define.
Yeah.
Good evening. My name is Melissa Lutkin, and I am the Executive Director of Rebuilding Together Peninsula. We repair homes, revitalize communities, and in so doing, rebuild lives. I actually would like to just start with a summary of, if we could start with the first slide here, so instead of my. Maybe we can have you just so that the audio.
Do you wanna hit? Our little camera will follow you.
Okay, great, thank you. Super, next slide. Rebuilding Together Peninsula is an affiliate of a national organization that crosses the country in a number of states. We are one of 115 affiliates providing homeowner education about home maintenance, assessments to determine needs, and in partnership with government and corporations actually doing the repairing and the revitalizing of communities. And as part of the affiliate network, we regularly connect with thought leaders from around the country to ensure that we're being innovative and culturally competent and appropriate in the best way we can in terms of meeting the local need. As a vibrant and well-connected and active network, we share best practices and learn how others within the local communities and organizations perform the highest quality of the work and the impact on the neighbors. Next slide. So in terms of who we serve, the average household median income of the families that we've served most recently was $38,000. The homes averaged in age roughly between built in 1947 to 1954. A great majority of the households that we serve have someone in the home with a disability, as well as someone that is elderly. And we all know that most elders would prefer to age in place than to end up in a facility if it wasn't their choice or with a family member with whom they feel they're being a burden. So our focus tends to be largely with homes that have an elderly member in the household, as well as, of course, the BIPOC population. In so doing, our work protects the diversity of the neighborhoods by supporting underserved homeowners to continue to live their lives in their homes in a way that's safe and healthy, and in the communities that they've actually helped build. So the way that we do this is primarily three kinds of repairs: fall prevention, deferred maintenance, and critical health and safety that prevents those that are at high risk of displacement from being displaced. That can vary from simple fall prevention improvements like grab bars to more complex projects like roof replacements, all with the intention of assisting homeowners to continue to live and age in place in a healthy and safe home. So I have just some examples of some of the work that we're proposing to do. Next slide. With our proposal for these funds. Deck repairs, fence repairs. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide, please. Thank you. Stairs. Next slide. And the next. And the next, and you get the idea. One of the next slide actually is a home that was two of the homes that we're proposing that we've already assessed in terms of their needs, electrical upgrade and leaking. And the next slide, please. And last but not least would be landscaping. So in summary, with support from skilled staff and approximately 1,000 volunteers, which I'm sure you know we leverage, we prepare approximately 140 homes annually, including community facilities. 8 out of 10 homeowners report that they feel safer having had the work done and that the issues are ameliorated. 9 out of 10 homeowners who received the repairs from RTP over a 4-year period, over a 4-year period reported that the repairs improved their happiness and their mobility, as well as continuing to help them live in an affordable way in their home. 100% of the most recent surveyed homeowners reported that they felt safer and able to live more comfortably. And last but not least, 1 in 10 said that the home repairs prevented displacement, that in fact they felt that they would be homeless if they had not received the repairs that they got. Beyond the physical repairs though, as you can see, the work doesn't just improve their physical safety, but also provides increased dignity and hope as well. Free home repairs can be an antidote to isolation as well, which many of you know is now a commonly understood social determinant of health. Next slide, please. So out over the last 34 years in which we've been the go-to repair agency in San Mateo County and northern Santa Clara counties, our work has touched every community in the peninsula. Since 1989, we've provided repairs for approximately 3,300 homes and community centers, and 110 homes and 19 community facilities in Menlo Park since 2009. Our annual volunteer-driven National Rebuilding Day has attracted more than $45 million in donated labor and materials, and provides opportunities for companies and civic groups to make a huge impact in a single day to preserve affordable home ownership and help maintain the diverse fabric of the communities that we serve. Next slide, please. So in terms of RTP's alignment with the housing element plan, I just wanted to point out several areas in which we do align with the goals, policies, and programs therein, one of which is maintaining and protecting and enhancing the existing housing, encouraging the maintenance, improvement, and rehabilitation of the city's existing housing stock and preservation of their affordable housing stock in particular, encouraging good management practices, rehabilitation of viable older housing and long-term maintenance and improvement of neighborhoods. And last but not least, assisting in implementing the housing rehabilitation programs, continuing to target Belhaven in particular as a primary area for rehabilitation to prevent existing units from becoming deteriorated. Next slide, please. So our proposal would complement the roughly 10,000 that we received from the City Menlo Parks Community Grant Program, with which we complete about 3 repairs a year, and then the balance of the costs of those repairs are complemented with funding from the county currently. The $180,000 grant would provide for 8 homes of low-income homeowners to be repaired in Belhaven at a budget of approximately $22,500 per home. One being a larger project that would be one of those more complex ones that we could do with volunteers, presumably to be complemented with the funding that we received from this project, as well as safety modifications. And lastly, it would include highly leveraged work as a result, for the fact is that every dollar that's spent on repairs, we secure roughly 40 cents in-kind skilled labor and construction materials. Next slide, please. This is Naomi. This is a member of the Belhaven community whose home we rehabilitated about a few years ago with some employees from Facebook. She and her husband, who was from Nairobi, were the first Black family to move to Belhaven. Naomi was actually an original Rosie the Riveter. They had 4 children before her husband returned back to Africa, leaving her to raise them alone. The volunteers repaved Naomi's driveway, built her a wheelchair ramp, and renovated her kitchen to make it usable. And as she and her daughter and I sat in her living room surrounded by strangers and volunteers working on the house, she looked at me and said, "How much will this cost?" And I said, "Nothing." And she said, "Ain't nothing for sure." And I said, "Well, actually, some things are, and this is one of them." And it's not unusual for people to feel like it can't possibly be that all this work could really not cost somebody a cent. In terms of our timeline, the homes would receive roughly 5 services over a 3-month period. The next slide, please. I'm sorry. The application is received and reviewed, which has already been done on these 8 homes. The staff conducts a comprehensive assessment of the needs, which has already been initially accomplished. This staff then creates a scope of work, which details how the repairs would be completed, completes the repairs, and then of course the closeout and issuing of a feedback survey, which will always come immediately afterwards in terms of satisfaction, and then 6 months later for impact. And this project would be project ready to begin upon award. We would propose for these 8 homes. Next slide, please. And before I close, I'm sorry, the slide just before that. I want to point out that in addition to the dignity and hope that the repairs provide for homeowners, the home selected as project sites for a team on a rebuild day has significant impact on the community in other significant ways. By bringing volunteers together in the intimate setting of someone's home, we forge critical connections and understanding among people who would likely never otherwise interact. And the concrete, immediate, and long-term impact of the improvements inspires civic participation year after year. One construction captain just this last Saturday during our build commented that quote, "There's no other volunteer experience where you can so directly and profoundly impact someone's life in one day as you can with RTP." Thank you. That's all I have. I'm happy to answer any questions.
That sounds like a wonderful program.
Thank you. You think so? Greg Bernard is here too. He's our director of programs. So he's really the one that gets all the work done.
I don't believe it.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Are you the Silicon Valley chapter or the San Francisco chapter?
We're the Peninsula chapter, right in the middle.
Chelsea, do we have any, I'm gonna ask the question, do we have any public comment on this item? Or does anyone have any questions?
I have two questions. The first one is directed towards the commissioners. I was wondering where the $2 million funding comes from and where the $5 million funding.
So right now we only have the 2 million for the snowplow. The 5 million came from fees that were collected. But right now we're focusing on the 2 million. The council will need to decide whether they want to utilize the 5 million for this snowplow or for future projects.
What is NOFA's?
It's a notice of funding availability.
We were joking earlier about how many acronyms there are. And the 2 million is, comes from, in lieu fees.
Correct. We already have those.
Yeah, so we have the. In lieu, the in lieu fees are, okay, so it's, I'm gonna butcher this explanation, so anyone feel free to jump in. When, new construction, when companies construct, a project over a certain square footage, they're required to provide one, like a certain number of below market rate housing, or they can pay an in lieu fee that's calculated. I don't remember what the calculation is. Is that
I
right?
can provide a link to the calculation.
Yeah.
And I'm happy just to explain a little bit more. So yeah, there's so great job, Commissioner Leach, thanks for picking that up. So we have our zoning ordinance outlines the below market rate requirements. And so as Commissioner Leach mentioned, we have residential projects that generally meet our below market rate requirements through inclusionary zoning. So that is typically met through, depending upon the number of units in a project, it can either be 10% or 15% of the number of units would be dedicated to low income housing. If it was a for sale project, generally it would be moderate income household for sale projects. And then for commercial projects, generally, because say residential is not permitted or not part of a project, it would generally be paid through a commercial linkage fee. And so, as Erin mentioned, it is a general project over, it is 10,000 square feet or more. There is a calculation based upon size and based upon use. So, say for example, office is one category, has a certain dollar amount per square foot that they pay. There's another category like all others, so it might be research and development would be a different category. There's a different dollar amount. So depending upon the proposed use and the existing use, so that sort of that calculation of square footage times proposed use, existing use times dollar amount, and then it's in that difference that then is determined the in lieu fee that would be paid traditionally at the time of building permit issuance. Yes.
If you give me your email, I can provide you a link to the guidelines.
I have a question for staff, from just a policy perspective. So these in lieu fees are being paid by developers to the city, because they're not building any housing and they're building other resources. So the other option they have is to build housing, right, as part of their development. So what is the city's view? And I'm sorry, I don't mean to make it a political question, but really it's, I guess, a policy question. What's the city's view on holding those new developers accountable for building housing on site versus in lieu fees? And if the in lieu fees are insufficient to build a project, why is the city being asked to fill the gap, I guess is my point.
So,
Thank you, sorry.
So I don't know if there's like the right, it is a sort of a policy question, but for existing regulations, so as I mentioned, many of the commercial linkage fees are based upon projects that either do not allow, do not allow housing on the site. So if they, for example, are located in our life science district out in the Bayfront area, it does not permit residential uses. And so that
Must become an in lieu fee.
it is an in lieu fee. They can, I think we heard earlier, potentially partner with, someone who might be providing residential units and they can contribute that money to a project. That often then requires coordination with a residential developer to see if there would be offsite units. I think we saw that last time where we talked about the 1162. That was a residential project, but they put units at a different project. So it can happen. But then again, it's like working through the entitlement process, the delivery. And so sometimes we, the commercial linkage fee, because it's not allowed on site, becomes sort of the preferred method. On projects that are residential or mixed use, certainly the on-site development is preferred. It's encouraged through our BMR guidelines. It is generally a 15% requirement for developments that are over 20%. So that is on-site. There is a residential in lieu fee payment that is an option. That is something that I believe the applicant is able to choose between the two, certainly staff. And because we've heard through this commission, through council, the construction of units is preferred because it does take time to collect a certain amount of money to be able to distribute. And then that also leads to entitlement and construction versus having a specific project and being integrated into the unit.
Got it. So it's a policy choice that we, the city, are making to facilitate the developer to be able to pay for offsite in lieu, essentially. Or we could force the developer, not force, we could require the developer to develop on-site if they were in a residential zone, at least. Not a commercial zone. We could ask them to say.
Yeah,
You must build on-site.
our preference has been to develop,
Push
incorporate them,
for incorporate.
incorporate, yes, but I believe the applicant has a choice, and this is where I probably would want our attorneys to make sure that, if they do have a choice, especially on certain projects that are all residential, they meet certain objective standards, they may have the choice that we do not are able to require certain.
Thank you.
Another question.
Yes. My question's for Kate with Head Housing. I was wondering, what kind of residents you typically house in your units and what's the typical size of those units?
So our typical unit size actually is quite small. And I'm sorry, my light is like totally blinding you. Let me see if I go this way. That's a little better. Are usually quite small because they're preservation. We don't do a ton of new build. Typically when we do new builds, they're larger and we partner with another developer. This project, actually, the units are quite large. They're going to be 700 to 1,200 square feet. Often the one bedroom for us is going to be under 500 square feet. So this project actually has quite large units. We're calling out all 60% AMI. But in talking with Michael, we feel like we probably could get a couple of ELIs in there too. It is a small project, right? So it doesn't lend itself to a large number of extremely low income units, but we can do the entire project at very low. And one of the reasons we don't even like to do low income units anymore, that's the 80% threshold, is because those rents are really high and it's hard to find people who can rent those. So we really like to keep ours at the 60% level. And again, because it's a small project, we typically can't do a lot of ELI, but sometimes we can do a couple, and Michael thought we probably could. And it depends on how many units we end up with, how many we'd be able to do.
Thank you.
Sure.
Oh, that's extremely low income, there's very low income. Extremely low income, very low income, and moderate.
Yep.
They're, just being the very expensive area, those numbers are high. Like, that's what she was saying, that for a family of four, low income is 150,000. So very low income is, I'm gonna make something up out of my head, for a family of four, like 90-some thousand. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're gonna post it.
Before they kind of raised it a bit. because-
Oh, so we're not making any decision tonight. I guess I,
Well, just a presentation.
okay, great. Can I raise a question? If you put up the slide with all four of the proposals, 4 or 5 of the proposals. We said that there was $2 million available,
Correct.
but that there might be another $5 million available coming soon. How do we know
have
that?
We have the 5 million, it just came in, but,
So meaning we received the check, or the developer
We
said,
received it.
oh,
But right now, we're only looking at the $2 million. The council may decide to use the 5 million later, but we can't make that recommendation for tonight. Or we're focusing on the $2 million.
understood. But if there's $7 million available, and then we're gonna wait another meeting before we make our recommendations to the city council, can
So,
I ask that we just consider putting all 7 million to work rather than waiting for a whole nother cycle?
so we're gonna present the recommendation at our next, hopefully at our next, housing commission meeting, and the commission can recommend what they wanna do, the funds.
2 million or 7 million?
You can bring that, you can make that recommendation.
Got it, thank you. So just so everybody understands my point, I would, if you guys are willing, the commission could maybe give some direction to staff to say, we're very interested in putting more money to work faster,
Right.
rather than waiting for more cycles and months to pass. And so if possible, staff could evaluate for the next meeting when we discuss this for, I guess not allocation, but final recommendation, to try and put to work all $7 million, and make sure that it's all properly noticed and agendized so that we can do that. Is that possible?
We'll look into that if that is possible. I'm not guaranteeing, but we are.
I think that's a good idea.
Do any of the other commissioners have a point of view on 2 million versus 7 million? And
I think the 7 is a little more needed. We would be able to, I guess my question would be, are we only recommending one project or one proposal? Or are we going to be able to recommend more than one?
The recommendation could come back, like, we'll split the 2 million between all the projects, and you could give all the 2 million to one project. So we'll have to work on that.
And that's a recommendation that the staff provides to us, right? Okay.
So I have a question. So let's say we do have the 7 million, and we have these 4 proposals here for 9 million. We can literally, modify the amount requested, right? We don't have to give the entire amount to certain proposal. So let's say HIP Housing asking for 5 million. And we say, you know what? We can give you 2 million instead of 5. Is that correct? That we don't have to accept the amount requested?
Let's make a recommendation based on the project,
so Chelsea, where I think you're going with that is, if we wanted to, we could say, let's do the 3 proposals and cut back HIP Housing to 4.8 million and fund the Rebuilding Together
Yes.
project for 180,000.
Yes.
Right. So what I'm saying that we don't have enough funds for all 4 projects that we can cut, let's say, one of the, or 2 or whatever, to, instead of giving them the full amount requested, we can give partial. So this way, but another question I want to ask the staff is that how often will we receive this kind of proposal? We spent all the 7 millions or, whatever we have. Would there be, is this something that we will get throughout the year? The proposals?
We could get proposals anytime. So like tomorrow, we could get someone else proposing to do something else. So like I said, right now we're focusing on the $2 million for these projects. We'll come back with a recommendation. We don't have to make a decision tonight.
Yeah,
So just kind of think about it.
yeah.
It's a good tentative.
Yeah, actually, it's not publicized to make a decision.
Oh,
tonight,
yeah,
So,
yeah, we're just trying to get clear on the process.
But there's no cycle to when these applications come in, like turned in February, decided.
We have the NOPA release every 2 years, but we could get proposals at any time of the year. That's, I believe that's called over the counter, which was something that we revised and the previous NOPA where anyone could apply at any time.
Okay.
So is it 7 million is pretty much we are really guaranteed for this year? Or will we be able to have more income?
$2 million. Right now, the 5 million will have to,
It's off the table.
it's off the
It's,
table for
I
now.
get
And
that,
the
you
council will have to
can't.
make a decision on whether they want to bring those funds in.
And to
So we-
clarify, sorry, Chairman, go ahead, I'm sorry.
So basically, we can only make decision on the 2 million right now, the funds that we have.
Right now, we can't make any decision.
It's just we're just learning
We're just
about what's
learning.
available and to drive the point home and beat the dead horse. There, you get proposals throughout the year and you don't have to stack them all in a corner and wait for proposal gathering season to, you can kind of like see about releasing funds throughout the year. Is that
Yeah,
right?
we
Okay.
can, but we tend to do this every year so that.
Okay, okay,
get
gotcha.
everything.
Thank you for
And-
that. 'cause that was-
Commissioner Portillo, do you have a point of view on how we should approach this?
I'm just thinking we have to be a little bit frugal with the 2 million. That's what we have right now. And, I see that, there's really good options here that have been presented tonight, but I think with the 2 million that we have, and like we said, we're not married to the amount that they're requesting. And I think HIP Housing said that they could come back and ask for more money if they needed it. 5 million is just what they need right now. So, definitely we can look at the 2 million and then see where it could be utilized or better utilized. And they're all great programs. I mean, if we had the 7 million, I would say, hey, let's split all of these options and then utilize the 7 million for each of these different projects. But, we just have the 2 million right now and we don't have to make a decision right now. So
Yes, I would say hold up on all this great conversation. We want to make sure that folks who want to be part of the conversation, when a recommendation is made, that you're having this great robust conversation again. So absorb all the information that you heard tonight. The presentations will be made available on the agenda. You can refer back to them, listen back to the comments or the presentations, and then at the next meeting, we will be able to provide some evaluation, look at the criteria that we've established with the NOPA, present that to the commission, and then have more of this robust conversation. So encourage you to not make any more.
Based on that feedback, I'd move to adjourn the meeting.
I do have a question. Is Habitat going to be presenting tonight?
No, they couldn't make it tonight.
Will they be presenting?
Well, we could ask if they have a slide presentation for us and. we can
Yeah,
get
I
that
would
on
really be inclined to see what they are,
Proposing.
proposing, just because, I have volunteered with Habitat. I actually own a home through Habitat and they have, they really have a great program, as does Rebuilding Together. Again, I really enjoy what you guys are doing. So I would really like to see Habitat's proposal.
We can request and see if they can provide.
Thank you.
So, since there's no action, to be taken, we can move to reports and announcements, with the commissioner, commissioners, do you guys have any announcements?
So do we have any items open for Housing Commission to discuss? Any other agenda updates that you want to add to the future agenda? Any items?
No, not that I can think of. I mean, we'll be going through the proposals at a future. So.
I do apologize. I do have one more question.
Oh, no.
And I do apologize for rebuilding together. You guys have already chosen those 8 homes and they are in the Bellhaven area. How did you guys choose those homes? Did they come to you guys? Do we know can you guys share the streets where they're located?
They did come to us. I know one or two of them are in Hollyburn. I don't know all the addresses off the top of my head, but they're all in Bellevue.
And how often how often are you taking requests to rehabilitate?
We take those all year long, so we do the repairs year round.
Okay.
Commissioner Portillo, would you like to see a list of the addresses at the next meeting?
I would love to. That would be fantastic.
Yeah.
And I think maybe if we can share if these are homes from, needy, like not needy, but maybe elderly or who the recipients are. Thank you. Sure. Thank you.
Great questions.
And is it possible to request to see the presentation at the next meeting for Habitat? Or do we have to wait till the summer to?
We'll have to wait and see if they can provide a presentation. We could request it. No, one or more.
And I guess that would be it for the.
So are we finished with the discussion on these 3 proposals?
Yes.
Yes, for
Yeah.
tonight, for now.
Okay. And there is, are there any individual updates from any commissioner on anything?
No.
Okay. All right. So Aaron, do we have any other items that we need to discuss?
We have a public comment. So-
Okay.
Hi.
Hi, good evening. What an awesome, fun meeting. This is like Christmas, right? Or whatever holiday we celebrate where we give gifts or receive them. This is Karen and I'm speaking from my home. I'm speaking today sort of with the Menlo Together hat on. It's a group I'm part of. We're hosting a community event on May 13th at 3 p.m. until 4:30 at Trinity Hall. And at that event, we're going to hear from local tenants. We're going to hear their stories and we're going to hear their ideas for solutions. And they're going to have a conversation with each other. They're going to answer questions of people who come to the event. And we will offer ways for people to get engaged in working towards solutions so that tenants can be healthy and safe and stable and rooted in their communities and in their homes. So I just wanted to make sure everyone knows about that. It's on the Almanac community calendar, so you can find information there. And what a great meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Aaron, do you have any staff updates and announcements?
We're gonna go back to commissioner updates.
Hi. May is Affordable Housing Month. And there is an event that you can go to in the Bay Area almost every day. including the Housing Leadership Council's policy breakfast next Friday, which is close by over in Redwood City at the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative office. There's also many events by Silicon Valley at Home. I happen to be on the board. I'm of SV at Home. I will send staff a calendar and ask that you distribute to the commission and hope to see you out there at some events. That's a great time to bring somebody that you think is interested in housing to one of these events as well to engage.
That's great. Thanks for that.
Sure.
So any staff updates, Deanna, that we have? I don't have any updates. Do you have any updates?
No, I just wanted to make a quick announcement update on the housing element process. So we are continuing to review HCD's comments and address the comments to submit back to HCD. We hope to have an item before the city council probably in early summer. So that would be an opportunity to see the proposed revisions that we would be working or proposed to send to HCD for their review, and hopefully feedback that this looks to their review for certification. We are starting to meet with different stakeholder groups, hoping to continue with HCD to get clarification on their comments, and we'll keep you posted as we move along.
Yay.
And then once that happens, then generally in the fall, we probably go back to planning commission, housing commission, and city council for another round of review for certification.
Would you anticipate another joint meeting?
It would either a joint meeting or individual commission meetings for that.
I thought it was very helpful to have to hear the comments.
Yeah, it's nice to have the synergy between the two groups, so.
Even if it makes for a late meeting.
Oh, sorry. I did have an announcement per our last meeting. We were discussing the tenants' right educational workshop that took place. I did attend it. It did give me great insight as to how to proceed with I know we're supposed to have an event coming up and the subcommittee is supposed to be planning that. So I'm excited to share that with the subcommittee, but
Great.
we did attend that and
Awesome.
it was very informative. A lot of local residents showed up and were eager to know what their rights were. And it was good to be there.
Thank you, Commissioner Walker. Do we have any other updates from any other commissioner? Do we have any recommendations for future agenda items?
Yeah, I think we set the list of the addresses
Correct.
as well for the rebuilding together.
Yes.
Sorry, I'm sorry. And Habitat's presentation was the request.
Okay. All right. Aaron, if we don't have any other updates, I like to move to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Okay, so meeting is adjourned at, I have to think I'm not in DC time, so this San Francisco will be 8:15 p.m. Thank you all, and I'll see you next month.
Okay, see you.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you guys in person.
Yeah.